Tonight is panel night, and we're going to talk about our experiences at camp and our experiences at Momentum. And it's pretty exciting because I know a lot of us have had life-changing moments at both these events, and it's really cool to be a part of. And I encourage everyone to consider going to camp or Momentum. If you can't go to both, that's understandable. But I definitely would consider going to one, if not both. And just keep your mind open to hear what everybody has to say, and just be open for the Lord to say, okay, you should go to this. And don't wait for your friends to force you to go, or your parents.
Absolutely. Can't really say much more than she did, but both have been very impactful in my life. So listen up. It's a good time. You don't want to miss it, and it's important. Sorry, that sounded really unserious. I am serious about it. Yeah, play the video. Yeah. Good time.
If that doesn't get you hype, I don't know what will.
All right, let's get this thing started. Can we get these lights on behind us, please? Pretty, please. Thank you. All right. So those of you guys that went to camp and are going to talk about camp, can you just tell like a fun story, something fun that happened at camp? Here you go. You might need that.
For me, it's definitely the one night me and Gage Marks, I don't know, probably a lot of people here don't know him. I don't know if you guys know him or not, but we shaved our heads like 3 a.m. and went around and surprised and woke all the counselors up. So that was pretty fun just to see them shocked and tired and delusional, looking at our bald heads.
A fun thing at camp that I know of is when in the morning a bunch of people saw people's heads shaved and they were just asking what the heck happened.
My funny story was during game time. It was Cooper's turn to lead the game, and he gave, people volunteered to play, and Camden was one of them, and you had to wear these blackout goggles and look for, was it a bottle? He had to look for a bottle. So Camden went running for the bottle. He thought he had the bottle, and instead he ran right into the wall. Straight into the wall and fell right backwards. he did end up winning the game.
Okay, so I didn't think of a funny story. I was just gonna say that cabin time was kind of crazy with JC, but now I actually have a funny story. We were playing a game with Josh Fulmer, and it was like Keepy Uppy or something like that from Bluey. And Hank Culp and I were picked to play the game, and I'm pretty sure Hank concussed like this random girl because we had to keep the balloon up, and we were just crowd surfing over a bunch of people, and probably violated a lot of people. But I'm pretty sure a bunch of people got concussed that time.
This are all very true. I'm just going to leave with the words flamingo heist and see if you know what I'm talking about. All right, so,
You got it.
okay. What does a typical day look like? And who's answering this?
Okay, so I pretty much just have the schedule. So you wake up, you eat breakfast, you have devotions if you're like in the Trailblazer group. So younger groups won't have that part. And then you have chapel, and then you have cabin time, and then you have free time, and then you have lunchtime, and then you go to the lake, and then you have more free time, then you have dinner, then you have chapel, and yet again more free time, cabin time, and then you go to sleep.
During free time, we have different things like tournaments. The 2 older weeks learn sign language, so that's been really fun. There's choir. We do a lot of different things in free time, so it sounds like it's free time, but there's a lot of things to do, and it's really fun.
So can you guys share a story of how you grew in your faith at camp, and how did it impact your life after that week?
For me, it's probably the walk the line thing. If you don't know, it's basically who runs it? Josh Fulmer runs it, where he basically just says like something that's happened in your life. If it has happened, you walk across the line, and it just shows that there are more people that are alike than you would think, and like share the same backstory as you, and it just kind of brings out all the vulnerability out, and it kind of helps being vulnerable with your friends outside of camp when you get back home and hang out with them afterwards.
For me, I'd say it had to be the vulnerability campfire because I said a bunch of things during that I wasn't proud of, and I changed my whole life after that.
The cool thing about Camp Momentum is I kind of call it bubbles. Like right here in this room, it's a sort of bubble, but let's be honest, we have our phones, we have our people, we have just different things. But whenever you're at camp, you're isolated. You don't either have Wi-Fi or data, and that just gives you an opportunity to like actually listen to the counselors and listen to the speakers and dive deep into the word and dive deep into friendship, like true, genuine, godly friendship, and just constantly growing your faith. And then one thing about this year was it was about being authentic, and that just really related me with grace and truth, you know. And with grace and truth, it's one sec. I'm trying to land the plane. With grace and truth, Jesus died for our sins, but he also wanted to develop a relationship with us. One thing I always say is before, I always grew up in church, so I always thought like I knew who God was, but I knew what he was. I knew like what he was. Like he was a thing in my life. He didn't have like a true powerful presence, even though I grew up in church all my life. I sang the songs, I did the dances, I did the motions, I did all the kids club stuff. And then finally, I think it was after Together, or that Momentum, he revealed to me that he's not a thing, he's a person who loves you really truthfully and authentically. And that kind of rounded in my brain this year with being authentic and realizing like God is someone to know. He's not something to know.
So personally, I was going into camp. I wasn't sure how things were going to go because the past year I didn't go because I kind of had like a little mental health crisis. So that was kind of weighing on me that I didn't know how camp would go because it was my first year going. So I had ended up talking with Josh, and he was asking me, he's like, well, you've been going to church for like the longest time, and you know, you're like involved in your youth group and you go every week and like you live your life as a Christian, but you don't call yourself a Christian. And I said, I basically explained that I was scared to call myself a Christian because I was scared that I would make mistakes and then be a stumbling block to others, because that's what kind of pulled me away from Christianity in the first place, was people being like stumbling blocks for me. And I had felt guilt for my past and like the reasons why I was far from God. And he said to me, he's like, well, every Christian's gonna make mistakes, but you're not gonna be a hypocrite for making mistakes. And he was like, well, what would it take for you to give your life to Christ right now? So I'm sitting on the porch with him and I was like trying to think, and I was like, well, I guess I'd want like Ryan and Celeste to be there. And right as I said that, Ryan walks by and like whips his head around and goes, wait, what? And Josh was like, can you go get Celeste? So he like runs, like Ryan like took off in a sprint, like off of the porch, and like comes back a couple minutes later and they both look at me and they're like, are you ready? And I was like, I was like, yeah, I guess I'm ready. So they sit down with me and he's like, okay, so do you have anything to say? Like, you just have to say, like, that you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. And I'm like, well, yeah, I do. And he was like, no, you have to say it. I was like, I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And he's like, okay, good. Okay, yes. And then he's like, we're all going to pray together. And I didn't know, like, what to pray about. I'm not very good at praying. But as soon as, like, I, like, opened my mouth, I said something, and I don't exactly remember what I said, but I basically said that, like, I will allow the Lord to, like, walk me in the path of what's good. And I talked, and it was so weird because I'd like never heard myself saying these things before. And also then in the week after, I went home and I was so determined to like get rid of anything that could be like a stumbling block to me. So like I unadded a bunch of people off of Snapchat. I deleted a bunch of music that I used to listen to, and I like was determined to just focus on God.
One thing that I got to actually witness that, I stumbled upon her giving her life to Christ, and I thought that was really cool, and we all started cheering whoever like walked out. And one thing that I did right, it's what Crook said, walk the line was very cool, and it's just a very vulnerable moment. The first time I did it, I had my sister there, so it was kind of like, I wasn't as afraid because I'm like, oh, we're gonna walk out to like all the same stuff. But then like near the more personal parts, we were walking out to different things. So it bonded my sister and I closer, and just now we're more open, and it just helps us grow our relationship with Christ together.
Mine is also with Walk the Line, not necessarily like the part of it. So during Walk the Line, I walked with one of my friends, and we didn't realize that until that night that we had so much in common through our lives and our personal struggles. So after we did Walk the Line, we went back to our cabins, and unfortunately we were in separate cabins, but we met up at the tennis court, and that's like right in the center of camp, and we're like, let's just go talk about our life. So we did, and we laid there. We quite literally laid on the cold tennis court and looked at the stars, and then we heard this noise in the back, and we stopped listening completely, and we could hear the boys singing Reckless Love at the fire, and that moment was such a wholesome moment. And Carly, I'm shouting you out. We probably were there until 2 in the morning. That night was a night that I'll never forget, and then weeks after that, she was just someone who was accountable to me, and it was through Walk the Line and through camp that we were able to get our close relationship.
Those are all really good, and thank you all for sharing. And I hope you guys can hear some of the things that can happen if you're open to letting the Lord happen and work in your life at camp. All right, so Rescued, camp. The theme is aimed, so this is the theme for this year, Rescued. The theme is aimed at getting us to understand what we have been rescued from and live out in hope, purpose, and the joy that this can bring. And then numerous places in the Bible speak about this theme, and here are a few. Colossians 1:13, for he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves. In Psalm 18:19, he brought me into a spacious place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. This is an absolutely amazing theme because the Lord can rescue every single one of us and just like hold you and let you know that you're loved and that whatever you're going through in that moment is not something that defines you. And so, what makes you guys excited about this year's theme?
Yeah, I'll go. Like you said, rescued. We're never too far gone. No matter what happens in our lives, we can always be rescued. It's super simple, but keep it simple, stupid. So, yeah, I just love it. It's a good reminder that no matter what we do, we can always be rescued by God.
So I first learned about the camp theme at camp, and whenever I was setting up with Ryan, I think Ben Long came in and told us, one of the first questions I asked Ben Long is it okay if I take fireworks or something and blow something up so we can have a bunch of cops and fire trucks come to camp so we can see how like the real rescuers do it? Ben said no. I was very disappointed. I'm going to read the theme verse again. Okay. I'm going to read the theme verse again because it's pretty good, or both of them. For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves. We are not of this world. If you're in this room, that means you're being called to something greater. It means God is calling you to something greater, to something more. And Jesus rescued us of our sins because God sent his only Son, who he loved, into this world, this really annoying, dumb, judgmental, bad world, to rescue us. And that means something really amazing and really great to me. Because, like, do we really deserve to be rescued? Probably not. I mean, I don't totally think I do, but through something called grace, Jesus came and he died for our sins. And through that, we get to be rescued and to be with him for all eternity. Because the alternative, the dominion of darkness, isn't exactly the best other alternative. But through being rescued, it brings me such peace that no matter what I go through in this world, I'm moving on to better.
I think similar to that, but like outside of, I kind of like the bubble. Like when you're outside in the world, a lot of the time you feel like hopeless or like you feel lost or that like sin is too much to overcome. But when you come to camp, like you feel safe and supported and like you're just surrounded by so many people that just want to encourage you to go in the right path. So I think without God, we don't really have a path. And a lot of the time we'll feel just lost. But when we like give our lives to Christ or when we're surrounded by people who just want to push you in the right direction, then you are rescued. And I don't know, I just think when you're able to find God's plan for you and you're able to find God, like everything gets better.
Yeah, that was good. I like everything that they said.
Thank you guys so much. Can you guys give them a hand? And then the guys and girls on the Momentum panel can come up.
Okay, and while we do that transition, everybody get up and do 5 jumping jacks.
I say anything tonight, I want you to remember this statement for sure. You don't have to act like the world to be successful in the world.
It's about being a little version of Christ. And if you're just willing, can you imagine the impact you could make? Can you imagine what could happen? I mean, these are some of the people that we see preach and thousands come to know Jesus.
If Jesus can break up with death, then you need to know that there is nothing too broken in you that he cannot restore.
Sweet. Let's start out here, kind of the same questions, but just one or two you guys. Can you guys give us a short story about Momentum? That was just a funny story.
So, me and Alyssa were sitting in something, I don't even know what it was, but we had to go to the bathroom. And so we went to the bathroom and we were waiting. It was like close to the end, so we were just gonna sit outside and watch TikTok and wait for it to be over. And then we realized there was nobody in the auditorium when we looked.
I just remember sneezing really loud, and Mara Dixon sent me the video of the live stream, and you could like hear it through the live stream, so like everyone heard it.
My funny story is, so there's this guy who was keeping his dog down on like the bottom floor of our dorm, and me, Maddie, and Carly were just like hanging out. I think we were gonna like go somewhere, and we saw this like really cute dog, and we were like, "Oh, can we pet your puppy?" So like Carly got down on the floor, and she's like petting the dog. Well, the dog peed all over her, and she had to try and hide it so that like the owner wasn't embarrassed. But it was really funny.
All right. So what does a typical day look like at Momentum?
So a typical day, you wake up and you go to these things called power tracks. They're kind of like a sermon, like session, but without the music. And then you have like 15 minutes until like you get in the auditorium. It's really cool because like everyone fits in there. There's 2,000 kids and sing a bunch of songs, and it's really cool to see like 2,000 kids praising the Lord. And then you have a lesson, and then you have lunch, and then if you're volunteering that day, you'll go out and do volunteer work for like a couple hours. Or if not, you have like sports tournaments or something, or like the spike ball. And then you have dinner, and then the session, and then that's like it. Or you'll get back in small groups, youth group time, yeah.
I mean, that summed it up pretty good.
All right, can you guys share a specific story of how you grew in faith at Momentum, and how did it impact your life after that week? And I'll start us off here. I think a lot of you guys have known my story, but Momentum actually changed my life and changed where I am today. If it wasn't for Momentum, I definitely would not be sitting up here in front of you. I wouldn't even be in this church, probably. So like, Momentum has absolutely changed my life and my whole entire existence in eternity.
Okay, so this was my first year at Momentum, and I encourage you, if you're unsure, like, go. I didn't go the past 2 years that I could because I was nervous about going, but I regret that because it was a really cool experience. For me, it was the worship night was when I really felt God's presence. We had these cards, like we did a few weeks ago at youth group, where we wrote down just the burdens that we were feeling in our lives. And it was like a weight was lifted. Like you could feel the presence of God in that room, and you looked around and you saw just hundreds of kids like going through the same things you're going through, worshiping God, and it was so crazy. And I feel like that experience really taught me to like not go into those things with expectations of what you want God to do, but with an open heart to allow Him to do what He wants to do in your life.
and just like surrendering it all to Him. It was something I really learned throughout that week.
So yeah, the main thing that I got is the accountability with my friend group. Before Momentum, it wasn't that great, but Momentum helped us realize that we really needed to be accountable with each other with sin issues in our lives and just anything really. And it wasn't just a Momentum, it carried through to our life after as well. And we still are really good about being accountable with each other. I would say that was the main spiritual thing that I got.
So, how have you guys seen God work in someone else's life at Momentum? And if you guys don't want to share, I can always share too.
I have seen, it's mostly the youth group. I've seen the girls. We just come together so much more and grow together as a youth group so much. I feel like every time I go, we come out as a group together so much stronger and bonded together so much more. And I think that's a really special experience that we get to have at Momentum.
Last year, like Cheyenne said, when we did like laying these things down at the cross, we split up into small groups afterwards, and it was encouraged to like share with your friends, like your close friends. I just remember getting in a group with like my roommates, and it was just really nice to experience, just to be able to like talk to each other and like say what you're laying down and keep each other accountable throughout the next few weeks.
So outside, just our youth group, we kind of sit normally up in like the balcony area, or we have a few times, and they do altar calls, which an altar call is like, if you want to just give your life to Christ, you can go up to the front of the stage. And so they were singing one night, and they did an altar call, and I remember, I feel like it's got to be like 60 people went up to the front, and you could just kind of like feel the weight of it. It was pretty cool to experience it, and just we were kind of sitting up, so it was just cool to see it from like a view up front of just all these people just going up to the front and like kneeling and just praying with others, and then there was people there comforting them and praying with them, and it was really cool to see the impact that Momentum had on these people's lives, and they changed their lives forever.
Right. How have you guys seen God work in somebody else's life through Momentum? Somebody else's, but that's okay.
What we just did.
Yeah. All right.
I can do that.
Okay.
So the theme for Momentum this year is all in, all out. This theme centers on the transformational power of Jesus' love and our response to it. Being all in means fully embracing the love of God. It's fully embracing the truth that we are deeply and unconditionally loved by Jesus. This love is not something we can earn, but a gift from God. Being all out calls us as believers' response to Jesus by loving Him as He loved His disciples, and Jesus sent us, so we are actively called to share His word. Is there anything else to that? Yeah. So, do you guys want to talk about the theme at all, or should we wrap her up?
Anyways, I think faith is not only about the knowledge but the commitment. So being all in means like surrendering and trusting and letting go of what you want, and then being all out is living in that freedom.
I think that this theme is really cool because a lot of people don't realize that with your faith you either have to be all in for Jesus or you have to be all out and live for the world. And some people try and sit right in the middle, and that's like something that's really hard because I definitely went through that too. But I just think that this is going to be a really cool theme because it's definitely something that we have all struggled with.
All right, so those are our camp and Momentum for the year. So I hope you guys join us, and it's going to be pretty exciting. And the band is welcome to come up now.
I'll wrap this up then. All right, yeah, band, go ahead and get ready. All right, listen up just for a few more minutes while they get ready. So a couple things. First of all, Momentum, that'll be if you're currently in 8th grade or above, you can go to Momentum. Camp, any of you, if you're here, can go, except for Dave. I'm sorry, you're probably too old to go to camp. You could come as a leader. Anyway, no, but here's the thing. They do cost money, and I'm sure you're not overflowing with it. So a couple things. Make sure you're doing your scholarship books. Make sure you sign up for the fundraisers. Make sure you're not talking to each other because you might be distracting somebody from some important information right now. And if the fundraisers or the scholarship books still you're coming up short, talk to me, talk to Anna, talk to one of the youth leaders, and we're going to get you there, okay? Do not let money be a reason why you don't go to camp or to Momentum this year. We already had a family in our church donate money just to send kids to Momentum this summer. The money's there, so if you need help, don't be afraid to ask, and we'll be private about that, but don't be afraid to talk to one of us about that.